Hi, I'm Anne. Welcome to or welcome back to my channel. I have not done a book tag for a long time, and I'm currently reading Persuasion, so I thought it would be a perfect time to do a book tag centered around this book. And it's called the Persuasion Tag, a Jane Austen book tag. It was created about a year and a half ago by Amrita by the book. So let's jump into the questions real quick and run through this video because I think all this week, most of the videos, hopefully, if I can get them out in time, will be themed according to Jane Austen. We'll see how quickly I get out videos. Number 1, Persuasion, like many Austen books, has been successfully adapted to screen many times. Name your beloved on-screen adaptation of a book published before 1900. The first ones that came to mind, I've talked a lot about. Pride and Prejudice from 1995, North and South from 2004, BBC. But the other BBC one that also came to mind that is by a very different author, and that is Little Dorrit. This was the main reason I actually read Little Dorrit, and I absolutely fell in love with this movie, and then I read the book and I absolutely fell in love with the book. So this is a great adaptation. I really love it. I highly recommend it if you get a chance to watch it. Also, if you're a fan of 2005's Pride and Prejudice, Matthew Macfadyen, he plays the main love interest in this. He's just slightly older. Number 2, in Persuasion, Anne and Captain Wentworth really go through the ringer. What's your favorite angsty romance that isn't them? The first one that came to mind, I don't know how much of a straight-up romance it is actually War and Peace, because there's so much angsty, ridiculous romance throughout this one, and it all centers around Natasha, the main, female love interest. But then you have, Pierre, Andre, you have the character I cannot remember that also proposed to Natasha quite early on. So basically, there's a lot of, love interests that are centered around Natasha. Oh, Anatole. I forgot Anatole. So yeah, you have ridiculous angsty romance filled in this book. And even though, you don't think of it as a romance, it's like War and Peace. It's about Russian culture and war and the War of 1812. But yeah, it's a lot of angsty romance in here. Number 3, Captain Wentworth is a naval captain. Tell us about a book featuring a lead character who is in the branch of the military. I don't actually read a lot of military type books, but one that came to mind, and I probably talked about this way too much on my channel, but I'm going to keep talking about it till more people read it because I think it's a great book. That's The Explorers Guild. This one follows a group of dragoons as they try to seek the mythical city of Shambhala. Shambhala? And the leader of the group, I would say he's the main character. So because they're dragoons, they're ex-military people. And I believe this centers around World War I. A lot of the characters are military guys. So there's also this young soldier that joins them eventually. So he's also a semi-main character. So yeah, quite a lot of the characters in here are military men. Number 4, British naval captains were famous adventurers. What's your favorite adventure story? I have talked about this a lot on my channel, but not recently, so I'm going to talk about it, and that is Tintin, the comics. I absolutely love these comics. It's all about Tintin, this journalist from, I believe it starts in the 1930s. That's when these comics were written. He goes on adventures with his dog, Snowy, whose original name in French I cannot remember. Is it socially acceptable nowadays to read this? Maybe not. Everything's being canceled nowadays, but I love this comics book series. Number 5, Anne is quite a dutiful sister. What's your favorite literary sibling relationship? I actually just bought this copy recently, and that is Little Women. I just love sisterly relationships and brotherly relationships in books, but I think this is one of the best I've ever read in all of literature because you have 4 sisters. You have Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy, and you just see them go through so many hard periods throughout their life and really become closer but grow up together. And I just love seeing it in this book. It's a great book, even especially since all the sisters are so different from each other, but they all come together and love each other deeply. So yeah, it was #sisterly goals that I had for me and my sister. Number 6, by the standards of the time, Anne was a spinster. What is a book where the female lead is an older woman? The first one that comes to mind, I have to pick it. It's Miss Marple series in general. I'm pretty sure this is the only Miss Marple I own. I don't know why I only own one of hers. Miss Marple is just a great old spinster who solves murder mysteries. I just love her so much. She's amazing. It feels almost more cozy to read her books as opposed to Poirot, even though I love Poirot books. But yeah, she's great. Love Miss Marple. Number 7, Persuasion is one of the most critiqued / referenced books in English literature. Name a book whose plot or characters or central ideas reference another book. And I thought of like retelling genre in general. You see a lot of retellings for Jane Austen books. I don't think I've read a Persuasion retelling, but the one that I'm actually reading, a friend lent it to me, is Lore Olympus, and this one is interesting. I'm not that far in, as you can see, but it is a retelling of Persephone and Hades. So Greek mythology in more of a modern, strange world. It's a really interesting book. One of my friends really loves it, and she was like, here, you have to borrow my copy and read it. So me and my husband are reading it. I mean, I'm reading it, but my husband will be reading it eventually, if he has time. I think of like the retelling genre as very much like recycling old ideas. Some of them are good, some of them are really bad. This one's good so far, but I'm not that far into it. Number 8, Captain Wentworth made his fortune at sea. Tell us about a book with a self-made lead character. I could not think of one. I don't know why, if I like don't read a lot of like self-made characters, but I did find this one on my bookshelf, and it's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I don't know if Willy Wonka would be considered the main lead, but he's definitely like up there with Charlie. Charlie's definitely the protagonist, but Willy Wonka, we don't learn that much about him in the book, but he is very much a self-made man. He's absolutely brilliant, and he built his empire on the slavery of Oompa Loompas. That's a whole other theory online. But yeah, it is true that Willy Wonka definitely built up an empire. Number 9, Persuasion has a lot to say about traditional gender roles. What's a book that plays with traditional gender roles? And I decided to go with The Help by Catherine Stockett, and specifically one character, and her name is Skeeter. I believe that's not her real name, it's her nickname, but that's the only name I can remember for her. But she wants to be a writer, and she ends up meeting a guy and really liking him and almost saying yes to a marriage proposal, and then realizing that because her goal is to be a writer, and because he doesn't have quite the same belief system she does, that it wouldn't work out. So she refuses his offer of marriage and decides to stay a writer, and she publishes the book that is basically the perspective of the maids in 1960s, specifically the black maids in 1960s Mississippi, and of course it creates quite a stir. So it's an exceptional book. And then number 10, this one's optional, but I'm going to do it. Finally, tell us a bit of trivia, a fun aside, and a personal anecdote related to either Persuasion or any other work by Jane Austen. So I actually avoided reading Persuasion for a long time because I saw the 1995 movie, I believe, and I did not like it. And I think at the time it was because I was very young. I was reading all of Austen's books in my mid to late teens. I think I read Pride and Prejudice first, and then I read the rest slowly afterwards. And so I was in the age group. Catherine in there is like 17. Lizzie is 20. Emma, I believe, is 19. So they're all very young characters. And Persuasion is the only one that has Anne being, I believe she's 28, so she's considered a spinster. So I think I didn't relate to it because Persuasion is possibly the most serious Jane Austen book, and it has a slightly different feel, and so I didn't like that growing up. So oddly enough, I feel like I am enjoying this more upon reread because I do relate to it more because I'm older now. Like, I am actually 28 right now, so I'm reading this book when I'm about the same age as Anne, and I just got married, a few months ago when I was 28. So it's quite fitting to reread it now. So that's a fun anecdote of how I came from disliking Persuasion to really liking it. So interesting aside. And I'm probably not going to tag anybody because I'm not sure who's actually reading Persuasion this month. Have you read Persuasion? What are some of your answers to some of these prompts? If you do this tag, I would love to hear your answers. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, like, subscribe. I post every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!